All right, everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Filter That podcast. I have the pleasure of bringing on our service director here today, our field service director. I think that might be his official title, but it is Tim Jones. Welcome, Tim. Say hello to everybody.
Thank you, Frank. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm really happy to have you on today. One, because I think you're a wealth of knowledge and you tell it like it is, but also because we're coming up, obviously, this week with the launch of this podcast on Fire Prevention Week. And of course, we know that preventative maintenance is one of the things that you can focus on to make sure that you don't have to experience any kind of fire, in your home. But, specifically today, we're going to talk about how to prevent that in an industrial air filtration system like what we provide here. So I'm going to give a quick intro so everybody knows who Tim is on the line here with us. He actually joined us back in April of 2017. He is responsible for every single unit as it leaves this facility. Prior to joining us in 2017, he served in the military, specifically the Marines. He served in both Operation Iraqi Freedom as well as Operation Enduring Freedom. He's an avid fisherman, has a wonderful family, lives with him in Michigan. And from here, I'll let you sort of take the reins here, Tim. I know I gave a little bit of an intro, but tell everybody else a little bit about you and what you do here at RoboVent.
Well, sure. Thanks, Frank. I am the avid fisherman, which during October Fire Safety Week is also a good time for salmon fishing here in Michigan.
Good timing.
But as you said, everything that RoboVent builds, we put the best in the industry warranty behind it. You got 15 years of that structural warranty. So everything that we build, once the customer has it installed, they have me to deal with. We're here to take care of them.
Right, and our folks don't necessarily, like our customer base at large, they don't always get a chance to interact with you directly. Being the director of the department and division, do people typically see you, interact with you? Talk a little bit about the structure of the department and who they typically interact with, which is why it's a little bit of a treat for us to have you on specifically.
Sure. So we have teams across North America, and in the different regions we have managers whom our customers normally interact with, especially those who have our service contracts in place that we regularly service their equipment. So they have the same technicians, they deal with the same manager, everything is good and routine for them, they're used to it. I get involved when there's higher level issues, for instance, fires, which we're coming up on focusing on, as well as any major system upgrades, things that need, places that need training. They want to set up a training program for their internal maintenance folks, things like that. Or if, we're very busy, I lend a hand anywhere and everywhere that I can.
Right, which is the mantra for RoboVent, right? I mean, we got a lot of folks working across departments and helping each other out because that's how you deliver fast, friendly, and world-class, product systems and services, right? So obviously, Fire Prevention Week this week, I thought it would be great to review some material we actually published last year. But, when you just push out a piece of content, you share that with your customer base, you don't always get the context if you're the customer, right? The end user within the facility. So I thought, what better way than to go through some of that material as a nice reminder for everybody, with you giving us some real world examples of why those things are important and why we need to be mindful of them all the time within facilities. And if you don't recall what we're talking about, last year we published something specifically for Fire Prevention Week, and you can find that at robovent.com/fire-prevention. I'm going to pull that up right now on my screen here. So going back to that, it's just really great timing to talk about this. We're going to review the 6 top tips so that you can avoid fires within your facility as it relates to your dust collection equipment. Tim and I produced this last year, but we didn't have the podcast at this time last year, so we couldn't add in this sort of different format. And if you're willing, Tim, since you are a Marine vet, could you do some Marine trivia if we've got some time after this so we can test your Marine knowledge too?
Oh, I could give it a shot. Taking me back in time here, though.
Well, I did some myself and I already got them wrong, so I'm going to really test your expertise today. But let's get right into it here. Talk a little bit about why fires are so important and why we've got to pay such close attention to a week like this.
Sure, fires. I mean, anything that causes major downtime, and it's a subject that can span across every person department within any company. Is that it costs money at the end of the day? It lost production. So it doesn't matter if you're in purchasing or if you're the maintenance manager. The effects are the same. So fires obviously tend to be the most catastrophic and cause the most downtime, especially when you have to evacuate a whole building because of this. But just general downtime is major loss of money. That's people don't want to do that. So you either schedule your maintenance or maintenance will schedule itself for you.
Right. We talk about that. Like you need to be in control of your facility. Don't let the equipment manage you. You need to manage the equipment and all the processes, etc. So let's get right into it here. I mean, this one seems simple. I do this at my house. Clean and inspect your smoke detector. Why is that number one on the list here out of everything?
It's the easiest one, it's the fastest one, and it's one of the most important ones. I mean, a couple minutes, take this thing off, clean it out with a can of, dust off the can compressed air. If it has a battery in it, put a new battery in it. Some do, some don't. We have, a few different models out there. And test it. Make sure it actually works. You'll hear it go off. If you have your unit running, you press that test button, it's going to shut your whole unit down, go into alarm, just as if there were a fire. And that's what you want. You want to make sure the safety function works.
Well, it's interesting that you said has a particular sound because the theme of Fire Prevention Week this year is learn the sounds of fire safety. And of course, a lot of the marketing materials around, NFPA's sponsored week for fire prevention is typically about residences or maybe small businesses. You don't see a ton of information on fire safety for manufacturers. So I feel like we can contribute towards that total content across the web. Have you seen real world examples where this was the thing that wasn't checked and there was some damage caused into a facility or collector?
For step one there, no, because this is a safety function that if it fails so the unit can't run.
So then if this isn't working, then the unit's just inoperable anyway. So you'd never see this as your source.
No. You're not going to have a fire and this thing doesn't go off. It's a safety feature that works and works well.
When we were doing this list last year, I thought that the second element here of containing uncontrolled sparks would actually be number one. So why is that number two on the list compared to the first one here? This is going to be the cause of some of the fires I'm sure that we hear about.
Uncontrolled sparks, it is. And this one is number two on here. And really the parallel between one and two, it's someone's got to go first. The quickest, easiest way to make sure your safety feature's working. That's why we decided to put it at number one. The uncontrolled sparks we see often cause fires in a couple different circumstances. One is units that are up on hoppers, they're connected with flex hose. You get large enough burning embers, land on that, it's going to burn a hole through there and start a fire in a collector that might not even be running. The other we see is if you look there at the number one, that photo there, you got the smoke detector over that expanded metal. Say that unit's not running. Somebody is cutting or grinding next to it, launching large sparks into that. Below that's your clean air. That's where your motor is, and that leads down to your filter cabinet. You get some embers down in there, you're going to start a fire on a unit that's not even running. Controlling uncontrolled sparks is very important, and it's easy to do.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that you've sent me some of these reports here from some customers here, which obviously we don't show on the screen or share it all, but the note was about putting in baffles incorrectly and also had too much cutting and welding too close to the unit, and that actually caused some damage here that we're looking at.
Yeah, that's right. Your spark arrestor, which is in that list on the other page you're showing, proper maintenance and proper installation.
For this particular circumstance, what kind of downtime did the facility actually experience from this fire?
This one, probably about a full week. This was on a critical piece of their manufacturing process. Even though it's a small unit, it put them back quite a bit. This actually made their local news. They had to evacuate the building. It was not only a costly downtime issue for them, it was also a PR issue with the local city, with their employees. So this one set them back quite a bit. This was very bad.
Well, that's part of the downtime we talk about that, but then some of those other circumstances that unfold as a result of it, whether it's your insurance work that you have to go through, public relations issues within your community, municipal issues that you might have to deal with as well. Now you're on a watch list perhaps. I mean, who knows? Is this one that could have been prevented? And like, what was this equipment failure, or was this is all maintenance failure that we're talking about here?
This was a direct lack of maintenance and improper maintenance.
This is why I felt like it would be really good to sort of show a peek behind the curtain on what we're seeing out in the field. I mean, generally speaking, as our service director, what's your stance on dust collector fires in general? I mean, from my perspective, they can happen, and you need to make sure that you're well armed to make sure that if and when they do, you have your plan in place, but then do all the things to prevent them from ever happening. But that could be wrong. What's your take?
Absolutely. I mean, maintenance is the very first step. We do everything possible when we design and install these pieces of equipment to be as good and safe and self-sustaining as they can be. But without proper maintenance, proper cleaning, maintaining your spark arrestor, you're going to have a fire at some point. So taking care of your equipment, that's it. It's that simple.
We've got number 3 is check fire suppression systems here, and this section has a ton of detail on it. And I know on the website we actually break that down a little bit and sort of show, the right types of smoke detectors to choose, how you can stop sparks, different fire suppression systems that we've got on here. But talk us through that a little bit. Why did this one make the list specifically?
Okay, so we have a couple of different options that we offer. We have dry chem, which is your standard ABC extinguisher, just like you'd have anywhere else in the building, or you may even have in your home. Then we have the FM200 gas. And the processes for just inspecting those two are a little bit different, but the overall concept and process is pretty much the same. Make sure it's there, make sure it's in good working order, make sure you're recording that you're actually doing those checks.
So somewhat similar. This is somewhat similar to maybe number 1, but if this is down, will our units still run, or is it treated differently?
No, so say you don't have a fire and there's an issue with some tubing or something and it leaks out. It's going to put an alarm up on your HMI, and you're going to have to go acknowledge that alarm because the unit will not run. And at that point, folks give us a call. We can either walk them through how to get back up and running until we can get it repaired, replaced, or we just go out and they don't run until it is good to go again.
When you're getting calls like that, is it typically because somebody needs you to come out and do a one-time service? I mean, we're not getting calls and reminders of this when people are signed up for like a PM service agreement, I would imagine.
No,
Is that correct?
that is correct. When we have a PM service agreement, we do all these checks for them at the time of every service. And it's recorded, it's photographed, it's unmistakable. It's good, it's working because you can see it.
Right, and I know we'll have some sample reports actually showing up on the screen during our chat today, so people can actually see what those look like and what a typical report might actually entail. Again, any real world scenarios where you saw an issue or report that was maybe from lack of maintenance on that particular element there, from a fire suppression standpoint?
I do. So one, it was a dry chemical suppression, right? Customer spends all this extra money to put on this fire suppression system. If the worst does happen, they want to know they're protected. They're not going to lose their equipment. People aren't going to get injured. Part of the checking process is making sure the ports that this chemical discharges from is clean and clear. They come with little covers to keep them clean and clear. They're built to be inside of a dirty, filter cabinet. That little cap came off. They weren't checking it at a regular interval. When they did have a fire, the chemical couldn't release because there was so much corrosion and dust built up on it. So they had a fire, catastrophic fire, that could have been prevented had they just taken the extra steps to do the check on the fire suppression system.
This might be a silly question. In that particular instance, was somebody on a PM service program?
No, they were not. We
Okay.
found this after the fact when we did our follow-up investigation.
Well, let's move on. So To wrap that up, it's just really nice to get that real world perspective because, you know, it gives people some context for these real world consequences that can occur if you're not keeping up with your PM schedules. This one here, I was like, what, a messy room, general housekeeping. What's this all about? Number 4. But then I looked at the picture. We obviously cropped it for this piece, so we're not showing any attribution here, but that looks like flammable liquid in a container right on the top there. So tell us what we're seeing here.
Sure. So for folks who don't know what they're looking at, that's the intake for a unit. And those metal pieces back there, those are the fire baffles. That's meant to stop the sparks from entering the filter cabinet and causing a fire. It's not going to do a lot of good when you have a lot of combustible materials around the place designed to stop the sparks. So that nice oily rag there has some sparks land on it, gets smoldering or even on fire, gets sucked into the unit. Those fire baffles aren't going to help the cause.
You also showed me one where like baffles were inserted incorrectly. Is that sort of part of this equation as well? Did we see that on that last photo, or is that a bit different?
That one's a bit different. So this one here in the general housekeeping just shows a lot of combustible materials around there. Don't do that. The other one, the other photo you have there, that's one where they had a little bit of both. Bad housekeeping because you can see all the trash built up at the bottom there, pieces of paper. I think we even found some cigarette butts in there, which is more common than you would think, as well as the baffles being installed backwards. So not going to work at all at that point.
Well, right. You're like walking by and stuff is just getting sucked in there because the suction is constantly happening. So, if people are flicking stuff in there, probably not strong enough to just like rip off your shirt as you're walking past it. Like, hold on a second. Gotta sneak past the RoboVent unit real quick. It'll suck my shirt right off. That does not come standard with our units. Trust me. I've asked to show off that dad bod, of course. Again, give us a real world scenario here. Have you seen, heard, found reports of where this was the root cause of a fire that happened?
Absolutely. It's probably about 30% of the time is poor housekeeping.
Interesting. So why not have this as number 1? Is it because this is still a heavy tip? It's a top 6. I guess we didn't have to necessarily put them 1 through 6, but could this be the worst one of the bunch that causes the most issues?
Not really. The situation is going to dictate. But smoke detector is number 1 because without that, all of this other stuff doesn't matter. Because if you do have a spark make it through and that unit doesn't shut down, this thing continues to burn with the motor running, you have yourself a very large blowtorch at that point. So
I see.
if a fire does occur, you want that motor to stop. If you have dampers, you want those engaged. When the fire suppression releases, it needs to be contained inside there so it actually suppresses the fire versus flies out the top because the unit is still running. So the safety equipment comes first, and the rest of this falls in line.
Well, I feel also, we also hear about general housekeeping procedures to make sure your facility's free of dust clouds as well, right? In the case of combustible dust and potential explosions that way. So if you're not cleaning your facility regularly, then you could have some other downstream issues, of course. This next one, I loved seeing this one on here because obviously you can maintain the Delta 3s and the spark arrestors that we manufacture as well, but there's other types of spark arrestant systems, of course. And we maintain all of them. Is that correct? You want to talk about that a little bit and say why this one made it to the list?
Sure. Any spark arrestor, regardless if we make it or not, is going to need to get cleaned. Most parts, places that we deal with, have oils in their process. Their parts have oil on them. They're spraying weld product on there before they cut and weld. And it creates an extra little oily stickiness to it. That gets built up on any and all spark arrestors. That stickiness traps dust. Then you got yourself a nice little dust bunny sticking there. And if it gets large enough and you get the right size spark that lands on it, you're going to have a smolder. That smolder is going to get pulled right into the unit. And you're going to have a fire. So clean spark arrestors will extinguish the sparks.
Is that hard to do? Is that maybe why it's a little bit lower on the list? Is it a more difficult maintenance task, or is it relatively easy to do this type of maintenance?
It's relatively easy to do. depending on where it's located. Some of these inline spark arrestors are mounted up and 60 feet up in the ceiling. Some are right on the unit. You can slide them right in and out the sides. So it's going to depend on the type of equipment that you have. But by and large, cleaning, it's easy. It's just general cleaning. Get in there with some brushes, some rags, you make it look shiny and new.
Again, real world scenarios here. I mean, I pulled up some photos on the screen here, but is this buildup that we're seeing here?
That is a lot of buildup. You got some stalagmites that are coming down from the top there.
Is that what these are here?
Yeah.
Oh. It almost looks like rust, but it's all dust buildup.
It's all dust.
Because if this is like a shot of the inside of the Delta 3, right?
That's right.
Wow.
We paint the insides of our Deltas blue. If you can't see any blue, you need to clean it.
All right, let's get to the last tip here. Here we go. Check filter pressure as the last one here. Why did this make the list? And give us some real world examples here.
Sure. Well, this plays into two parts. One is they bought the dust collector because they need to clean the air. If the filters are highly loaded, you're not cleaning the air. It defeats the whole purpose of having the equipment in the first place, right? Make sure the equipment works. The other part is depending on the type of spark arrestor you have, you may need to maintain a certain air velocity over and through it to have effective spark arrestants. If the air is going too slow or if it's going too fast, you might just suck that spark right through. It stays hot, lands on your filter, and starts a fire. And filter pressure is the key critical component in that.
Interesting. And Megan, have you seen this where this was the source, just dust cakes on filters, and that was the reason why? Or is that really just, that would cause a much larger fire if that's also happening within the unit?
Both, actually. We've seen some where they hadn't changed their filters in years. The filter pressure, we don't know what it was because the fire was so catastrophic at that point. But by the amount of material getting pulled out of there and knowing that they hadn't changed their filters in several years, that was the key leading factor to that fire. We've seen some places we go in, we do a system assessment. How's my equipment doing? What do I need? Come look it over. Sure enough. When we get there and their filter pressure's at 4 kPa, everything's totally caked in dust and it's just barely working. We tell them first and foremost, this filter pressure, it's not cleaning your air, and this is a very high fire risk. That usually gets their attention and they take action. Some folks don't know better. Some assume, the unit will just stop working. So education is part of that, which I'm glad we're doing this.
Well, right. I mean, this is something that's going to be published, within the podcast across all of our different channels. It'll be made available on a lot of our fire prevention and service-related materials. And obviously, I think, who knows, this could be one of our most listened to episodes because people are very curious on how, what they can be doing to just, safeguard their facility against such catastrophic issues that could occur. Tim, I think I already said it, but, this is the reason we do it. I really appreciate you coming on the show, teaching everybody some, great top tips on what they need to be looking out for in their respective facilities. Obviously, you can contact anybody within the RoboVent company. They're going to direct you to Tim and his team if you do need some help. But, I really appreciate you being on. So can we have a little bit of fun and test your marine knowledge here, if that's cool?
All right, go ahead.
All right. So Tim has not seen any of these questions yet. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I'm going to give you 10 questions. Just rapid fire. And we're going to put a wager on it. For every question you get right, I will donate $1 to the lunch fund in Sterling Heights, Michigan. It's good. So let them know that the lunch program is officially back as long as you get a good score. All right, here we go. Let's get started here. I can't take credit for this quiz. This is from zoo.com. I found it when I learned that Tim was a Marine. I have family that are basically lifelong members of the Marines. And retired as a gunny sergeant. That was my Uncle Frank. So he's the closest relative I've got that served. All right, so if a Marine is sent to the brig, where will they be going?
To prison.
Well, that's correct. That is correct. All right. When experienced Marines call new recruits boots, these recruits are what?
Oh, they're fresh out of boot camp.
Okay. You knew that one. All right, cool. Which of these terms is the slang term for a Marine? A puddle pirate, a jarhead, a flyboy, or a GI?
A jarhead.
A jarhead? Ding, ding, ding. That's also correct. You're up to $3 right now. So, all right, hold on a second. This is getting heated. All right.
We'll be living real good on the dollar menu.
When Marines are issued with a box nasty while in the field, they are given which of these? A rain jacket, ammunition, sleeping bag, or rations?
Rations. It's a good old-fashioned bag lunch.
Oh my gosh, it is. It's also referred to as a bag nasty.
Bag nasty, box
Because
nasty.
it comes
Often frozen
for
ones.
four.
Just the best meal. Do you miss them?
No.
All right, so then all right, so for that $10, I can probably get at least 10 to 20 of these, right? I mean, just pass them out across the whole, right? We'll see. I'll see if I can get a contract. All right, when on a vessel, if a Marine is told to go to the bow, where must they go?
That's the front of the ship.
Okay, I was going to say all the options, but you got it faster than I could even tell them. What would a brain bucket be in terms of gear issued to troops?
That's easy. That's your Kevlar helmet.
Oh, okay. That was pretty easy. Simple description. Helmet is a brain bucket and certainly one of the most important pieces of equipment to go along with their weapon. All right. All right, so if a Marine takes part in a dog and pony show, they're likely to be doing what? A parade, a physical training contest, or an actual dog and pony show?
A parade or something
none of
of
the
the
above.
sort. That could be a few things.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. All right. So what is this? Are you 7 for 7 already? I haven't even been. I lost count because I feel like I'm losing some money here. So I wish I could make these questions a little bit harder as we go. All right. Marines apparently hate these, but which of these describes a field day? Is it a trip to the local zoo? Is it a trip to the local fire department since it's Fire Prevention Week? Or is it a day spent cleaning their barracks?
It is a day spent cleaning the barracks.
Nobody likes that?
It's not your
I
standard.
feel like, yeah, but I feel like, were you probably the guy that was like, hey guys, listen, this is all part of the PM schedule. We need to do this. And everybody's like, yeah, you're right, Tim. This is a great day.
We field day every day here at RoboVent Service because we go and clean everything.
And only hire the Marines that absolutely loved that particular day.
They show up with their own
All
mind.
right, so here's the next one. Deep six. What does deep six mean? Does it mean, is it the time that roll call is taken, the time Marines must be in their beds, or the time to dispose of something overboard?
Time to dispose of something overboard.
That's also correct. All right, all right, all right. What about this one? What is a fallen angel? That's jargon for which of the following? Second tour as a Marine, somebody who died in an air crash, or somebody who failed flight school?
Somebody who failed flight school.
That's correct. Apparently sometimes used in a derogatory way. I didn't realize that. Okay, moving on. A 5.56 hickey is best described by which of these? A quick meal before the mess hall closes, a wake-up call before 6 a.m., or a burn or scar received on the neck from an ejected cartridge?
It's a burn on the neck.
All right, why?
When you fire a rifle, the casing comes flying out. We call that brass. You get a piece of hot brass that lands between your Kevlar vest and your neck. It just burns there for a minute.
Oh, so is that the length of the cartridge? Is 5.56?
No, that's the width of the projectile. The brass casing where all the gunpowder is.
Right. So all right, I see now. So that.
Leave a nice little burn.
Okay. Okay. When calling for a moonbeam, what should be handed over? Your night vision goggles, flashlight, weapon, or match?
That is an old flashlight term.
It's like a torch, calling it in Europe and England. All right. When a Marine is said to be D&D, they are what? They are. They're in a role-playing game. Getting a bite to eat, driving somebody home safely, or drunk and disorderly?
I would be drunk and disorderly.
Huh.
They are going to face the UCMJ at that point.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that. Oh my goodness, there's so many questions in this quiz. There's actually like 25 questions in this quiz, and I'm pretty sure we've already even done more than 10. So I tell you what, I give up. You are the best at this particular challenge. I will forfeit my $10 and afford something really nice on the dollar menu. And with that, I hope we had some fun. I hope some people learned a little bit today. And I can't thank you enough for being a rock star for us and taking care of our customers out there in the field. So keep doing what you're doing, man.
Thanks for having me. Anybody watching, I mean, we brushed everything real broad stroke here. If they got more specific questions, get hold of me anytime.
Oh, for sure. I think that definitely goes without saying. Well, that's a wrap for this episode of the Filter That podcast. Again, really happy that Tim was able to join us today. And everybody have a very safe, happy Fire Prevention Week 2021. See you all.